The question brought before the text tonight is this. YHWH, give us now the latest Bible prophecy news on the war in Persia, Elam, Edom, for this time today. 100 verses were drawn, and the first verse drawn, the lead verse, is Psalms chapter 4, verse 5. Slaughter the consecrated sacrifice of covenant faithfulness, and put your covenant trust in YHWH. Hear that first word. A question about war was asked, and the first answer drawn is not a battle report. It is an altar. Sacrifice first, trust second. Before the Father discusses any battlefield, he asks for a consecrated heart. The war voices are strong. Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 20. YHWH of Hosts is his name. You are my battle axe and weapons of war. With you will I break in pieces the nations and destroy kingdoms. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 16. Children dashed to pieces, houses plundered. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 10. The invader scoffing at kings, piling up earth against every stronghold, and seizing it. And over all of it stands Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 17. Do not be afraid of any man, for the judgment is Elohim's. Then the sharpest timing word of the draw. Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 13. You have broken the yokes of wood, but you will make for them yokes of iron. In the prophet's day a wooden yoke was broken as a sign of easy peace, and the true word answered, iron will follow. A broken truce is answered by a heavier yoke. The thread of the appointed season runs through 22 of the drawn verses. Amos chapter 9, verse 11. In that day I will raise up the pavilion of David that is fallen, and wall up the breaches, and I will rebuild it as in the days of old. Genesis chapter 22, verses 15 through 17, gives the oath, the angel of YHWH calling out of the skies a second time. By myself have I adjured, declares YHWH, in blessing I will bless you, and your offspring multiplied as the stars of the cosmos and as the sand on the seashore. Seasons are appointed, not improvised. The restoration voices answer the war voices. Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 15. YHWH has removed your judgments, he has cast out your enemy, you will not see badness anymore. Isaiah chapter 66, verse 22, promises the new cosmos and the new earth, where your seed and name remain. Exodus chapter 12, verse 27, gives the Passover pattern, he struck the Egyptians and rescued our houses. And 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 19 and 20, the ark prepared in the days of Noah, 8 lives saved through the water, stands beside Genesis chapter 6, verse 7, the decree of the flood itself. Psalms chapter 6, verse 9. YHWH has heard my supplication. YHWH will receive my prayer. Luke chapter 6, verse 21. Blessed are you that weep now, for you will laugh. Beneath the whole draw runs a spine, the convergence of identity, inheritance, and priesthood. For times the draw returns to the inheritance east of the Jordan. Joshua chapter 18, verse 7. Numbers chapter 34, verse 14. Joshua chapter 22, verse 9. Joshua chapter 13, verse 23. Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, their covenant inheritance beyond Jordan on the east, the land of Gilead, where Genesis chapter 31, verse 25, sets the boundary of witness. The priesthood portion runs beside it. Leviticus chapter 7, verse 34, the wave breast and heave shoulder given to Aaron and his sons by a statute for the ages, and Jubilees chapter 32, verse 3, Levi fell to the portion of YHWH. Notice where they lie, east of the Jordan, the territory adjoining ancient Edom. And they are quiet, allotted, held, while every war voice sounds to the west and to the east of them. Now the mathematical confirmation, kept as the servant of the text, never its replacement. The deterministic verdict is a leaning yes, probably affirmative in its pattern polarity, the probability of yes computed at 98.6%, the probability of no at 1.4%, and the claim class a strong anomaly, all gates passing. The data shows a statistically confirmed non-random pattern across multiple independent channels. The triple convergence of identity, inheritance, and priesthood stands at 7.34 sigma, nearly 12 times the genre-adjusted baseline. The polarity balance leans affirmative. The combined probability across the markers is about 5 times 10 to the minus 18. The convergence index is 88%, 6 of 6 channels active, threshold crossed. The pattern is robust to permutation controls and survives the false discovery rate correction. Prospective replication is recommended to establish persistence. The negative evidence must be spoken to, for this house does not suppress what the numbers say. The calibration estimate is uninformative tonight, 0 of 30 outcomes labeled in the ledger of remembrance, so the directional confidence is heuristic, not yet calibrated. Hear this clearly. None of this mathematics is verification of any external event. It is a reading of pattern in the drawn text, not a certificate about the war. With that guard in place, what does the text say to this day? The war in Persia, the land the ancients called Elam, continues. It opened at the end of February. A memorandum in June, a ceasefire at the end of June, and by the 8th of July, collapse, and the strikes resumed. Broken wooden yoke, heavier yoke. That is the rhythm of this war, the very pattern Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 13, names. This week the front is diplomatic, negotiations over the Strait of Hormuz, a draft arrangement waiting on a divided Tehran, a massive strike postponed for talks. Tankers have been struck off Yanbu and in the Gulf of Aden, and the drawer holds Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 21, Arabia and all the princes of Kedar, the merchants, inside the lament for Tyre, whose district was struck this same week. And Edom is silent in the drawer. No Edom verse was drawn at all, only the quiet, held inheritance east of the Jordan, for time's over. And Jordan likewise stands outside the belligerent lists, hosting diplomacy in Amman. This is offered for discernment, not as proof. The mathematics does not certify events. One tension must be named plainly. This affirmative verdict runs through a field of bitterness. Lamentations chapter 4, verse 3, the daughter of my people become cruel. Isaiah chapter 24, verse 6, the curse devouring the earth. Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 23, therefore this bad has happened to you, as it is this day. Job chapter 36, verse 32, with clouds he covers the light. There is another honest reading, that this drawer affirms the consecration of the inquirer more than it forecasts the course of the war, and the empty ledger cannot yet decide between them. So the charge comes gently. Do not be the voice that breaks a wooden yoke and cries peace. Do not rejoice over any nation's dead. Weep with those who weep now, for the laughing comes later. And so the direct answer to the question that was asked. YHWH, give us now the latest Bible prophecy news on the war in Persia, Elam, Edom, for this time today. The answer of the drawer is a leaning yes. Yes, the written word is speaking into this war. The judgment is Elohim's, says Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 17. The instruments in his hand are themselves breakable, says Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 20. The pavilion of David will be raised from its ruins, says Amos chapter 9, verse 11. The enemy will be cast out, says Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 15. And the first duty of this house is not to watch the war but to keep the altar. Slaughter the consecrated sacrifice of covenant faithfulness, and put your covenant trust in YHWH. The war belongs to him. The times are appointed. And the house that trusts him will laugh on the other side of weeping. The verses drawn in this altar of reception session were Psalms chapter 4, verse 5. 2 Chronicles chapter 34, verse 7. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 17. Job chapter 36, verse 32. Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 13. 2 Chronicles chapter 27, verse 3. This concludes today's interpretation at the altar of reception.